Fox News is reporting that the president could possibly this weekend meet with perhaps some new contenders for national security advisor and that position. He could be doing that this weekend. So we're putting up on the screen the names that we hear may be among them. We have General Joseph Keith Kellogg. He is currently the acting secretary. General David Petraeus, former CIA. Keith Alexander, former NSA. Lieutenant General McMaster, he's with the Army. And, of course, Stephen Hadley, former national security advisor. Those are the ones in play. Let me bring in John Hanna, former deputy national security advisor for the Middle East to Vice President Cheney. Sir, any one of those you're willing to stick your neck out on and say they've got the lead?
No, I really can't. They all bring unique advantages to the table. I've worked with several of them. Steve Hadley, of course, is somebody I worked closely with in the Bush administration, and he really is, together with people like Brent Scowcroft, is really the model of how you want your national security advisor to operate that system to make sure the president gets the very best advice and options possible.
You know, you're looking at a couple of days in the past. General Flynn, of course, had to quickly resign after mishandling information and not talking to Vice President Pence in the way that Donald Trump felt was commensurate with his position. And then they offered the job to retired Vice Admiral Robert Harward. He was handpicked, and he said, no way, he didn't want it. So how important is it to name somebody sooner rather than later here so that it appears that this administration has it all together?
Oh, I think it's extremely important. This needs to be done as soon as possible, yesterday, in fact, because the president's assembled an incredibly valuable cabinet. There is so much gravitas there, so much good advice, but now they really need a system in place in which he is able to draw on that advice in a very systematic way, because we are facing so many challenges in terms of global rivals like China and Russia, to these immediate threats in North Korea, Iran, ISIS, radical Islamic terrorism. We need to get this process fully staffed, up and running, so the president gets the very best team in place that he can.
As he has just gotten off of Air Force One, I'm glad that you brought up all of those issues that are on the plate. And you know, we haven't even talked about Boko Haram and all of that nightmare of what's going on in Nigeria. But it's important, I think, when you talk about the gravitas. Rex Tillerson, who is, of course, the Secretary of State, he has just been at the G20 meeting in Bonn, Germany, and this was his first moment to meet with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia. And people are talking about how that was a little bit awkward, and you can almost understand why, because Rex Tillerson does not have the people that he wanted, at least at the moment, underneath him, beneath him. And so how important is that the person who gets these positions is able to bring in their own team?
Oh, it's absolutely key, Liz. You're right. The secretary right now is basically home alone, other than a few close personal aides. So I think it's absolutely essential that he and the president, because these people are going to be responsible, they're going to be loyalists to the president, who are going to wake up every day thinking about implementing his foreign policy, not their own. So it's key that he get those people in place. Let me just say that I worked with Rex Tillerson I was exposed to him for several hours during the transition, and he may be low-key and understated, but he is the real deal, a genuine patriot with very deep knowledge and experience, going toe-to-toe with some of the toughest leaders in the world, including Vladimir Putin, and doing so quite successfully.
What would you say to people who say they're a little confused as to whether everyone's on the same page? Because you had Rex Tillerson saying the U.S. will work with Russia when mutually beneficial. Then you had General Mattis, Secretary of Defense, saying, outright rejecting any collaboration with Russia on military issues. And then on top of all of that, you just continue to have a few questions about NATO. Secretary of Defense Mattis saying, we will stand with our NATO partners. Mike Pence is in Europe, and he is going to apparently reassure jittery Europe. And yet you also have others saying, come on, start paying more for your defense, or we're maybe going to retreat a bit on NATO.
Right. I don't think those messages are necessarily inconsistent, Liz, but I think it all does point to the need to get this very systematic, coordinated process together as soon as possible, where these guys from the different agencies are getting together on a weekly basis to coordinate not only strategy and policy options, but messages that we're delivering to the world. I've got to say that when you get beyond all of the turmoil of the past month and you look at what the president has done, he's done a remarkably good job. The theme here is that he is tending to these critical alliance relationships, whether it's with Great Britain, Japan, Canada, Israel. Now the vice president going to Europe to meet with Europe's most important leader, Angela Merkel, and to reaffirm the transatlantic alliance with a lot of very skittish NATO partners. So there is some very positive movement here.
That's why it's dismaying to some when he has so many good things to discuss. The Justin Trudeau meeting with Canada, what's going on with Israel, and all of those other issues where you saw him with the union. They're great narratives, and then, of course, it gets a little bit derailed after a news conference like yesterday where the fake news loop continues. But, John, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Liz.
John Hannah is Foundation for Defense of Democracy's senior counselor.